What's up, guys? Welcome back into another video. My name is Pain in the Axe, and today I'm going to teach you guys 6 different things that's going to help improve your PvP experience in the Elder Scrolls Online. Next week, we have Whitestrake's Mayhem coming up. So that means there's going to be a lot of influx of new people, vet people, or people coming back to the game to experience some PvP. And if you fall into any of those 3, there's going to be something for you to learn here today. So with that being said, let's just get right into the video. Let's start with number 1. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is managing your stamina and being able to react quickly when you're stunned. So stamina is one of the most important things to be aware of in PvP, because mainly without it, you're going to become stun locked and locked down where you're not able to mitigate any damage because your character is just going to be locked down as a big target on the ground. When you do get stunned, do recognize that quickly and break free. One thing you can do is bind your break free to something on your keyboard, something that's convenient for you. I highly recommend that as opposed to double clicking the mouse, because that can get a little funky for a lot of people. Sometimes it's better to just have a one button click to break free for them right away, and they don't have to think about it too much. When you're on the ground, just make sure to get out quickly though, because if you're on the ground, nothing screams more like a free kill than you just laying there for everybody to wail on. It sounds horrible, but it doesn't make it any less true. So please break free quickly. It's a good indicator that you don't know what you're doing when you're just on the ground there. My next tip for you is to have a healthy amount of health. It's that simple. If I had 1 gold or $1, every player I see out in Cyrodiil, Imperial City, Battlegrounds, just running around with that 17,000, 18,000 HP, I'd be a very rich man, ladies and gentlemen. I would not be making this YouTube video. I'd be in the Bahamas drinking martinis, living my best life. It's true, but that's besides the point, because as a vet player, when I'm very comfortable fighting outnumbered, and when I am getting attacked by those multiple players, one of the first things I'm going to look for, and is the biggest indicator of an easy kill, is somebody with very low HP. I will focus that person first, just because I know I'm going to get them out of the fight quicker, because chances are they're just going to die quicker. It's going to take me a couple of skills to kill them. So my advice to you is to have a good baseline HP of about 30 to 32k HP. That's generally what most end game PvPers put their HP at these days. It makes them more survivable. They can handle more burst, and they have more time to react when they are taking a lot of damage. Another thing you can do to really improve your odds is just come prepared with food buffs, tripods, movable pots to restore your resources. The foods will buff your primary stats like your HP. One of the things I like to use is the Orzorga's Bear Haunch food. It buffs your max HP and gives you regen to your magicka and your stamina. So it's a very viable food to use in PvP. All right, guys, my third tip for you today is going to be to min-max your build and use proper traits on your gear. This tip can get a little bit technical, but I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible for the sake of this video. This is going to be more in a general sense of the 2 traits that we're going to be using. There's going to be builds that use other traits. They're going to be a bit more niche. Just from my experience and what I've seen primarily in a lot of builds, PvPers like to use mainly these 2 armor traits on their build. And the first one we're going to talk about is Impenetrable, or we're going to call it Impen for short. Impen's great because it lowers the amount of critical damage you can take from players. A little fun fact, NPCs can't ever critically hit you in the Elder Scrolls Online. So that's why it's never used in PvE. But for PvP, you're going to get crit by players all the time, especially Nightblades. So by running Impen on your build, you're going to reduce the amount of insane damage you can take from players. They're going to be put on these armor pieces called small pieces. And what do I mean by small armor pieces? Well, I'm freaking glad you asked. Your small pieces are going to be your belt, your boots, your gloves, and your shoulders. So what does that mean? It means those armor pieces offer less overall resistance as opposed to big armor pieces, being your chest plate, your legs, and your helmet. And that becomes important because if you want to min-max your armor and your resistance value of your build, you're going to want to run heavy armor on the big pieces, being that chest plate, legs, and helmet. And on those armor pieces, you're not going to run Impenetrable. Still with me? Good. You're going to run Reinforced. Reinforced increases the armor value of an item set by 16% when it's golded out, or 15% when it's purple. I know tempering alloys are expensive, so you might purple your gear. It's fine. It's only 1%. Don't worry about it. You're good. When on heavy armor, Reinforced outperforms having Impen as a trait. There's a lot of big brain math that went into that conclusion, and for the sake of simplicity of this video, I will not be including that. Maybe I'll make another video on that sometime. Let me know down below if you want me to do that. Other than that, I'd recommend you come prepared with bare minimum, like gold out your weapons. Please gold out your weapons. if you come into PvP, because they're going to offer you the highest weapon damage and spell damage bonus at that point, which is going to affect your damage and your healing. And my god, that was all a mouthful. I hope you're still with me. Hey, if you're here and you made it this far, you should like and subscribe to the video. You know, maybe you learned something already, and you don't want to hurt my feelings, do you? Or maybe you do, but please don't. Like, subscribe. Thanks. Bye. All right, the fourth one's going to be a little bit easier. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. Use your environment and LOS. What does LOS mean? That means line of sight, ladies and gentlemen. So when you're out there in Cyrodiil, Battlegrounds, and especially Imperial City, it's very tight quarters up in there. Be aware of your surroundings. Have an idea of what structures are around you, like rocks, trees, pillars. Really anything solid that can create a barrier between you and the enemy. Especially in scenarios where you're going to be outnumbered. You're going to want to close the distance between them. Using terrain to your advantage is essential, preventing unnecessary damage, especially if you're just dipping in your toes into PvP. There's plenty of times I will be called what they say a tower humper in Cyrodiil, run zergs around in circles in the little resource towers, you know, making them feel silly and whatnot. And I'll tell you, it feels so good, man. It's so good. Don't be afraid to get creative too. There's plenty of times where I'll run the Sijic ultimate. I think it's called Temporal Guard, top of my head. And you can go like a tower, fall off the tower, the Zerg will follow you off the tower, and then you just undo or Temporal Guard right back up to the top, and then you get to sit there, do a little emote, you know, flaunt them, and then run away and make your hasty escape. So yeah, use your terrain to your advantage. Don't ever feel bad about that. It's about surviving, especially if you're new. Survive. Our next tip is going to be for you new players who are getting right here into PvP. I know learning PvP is very daunting and just kind of outright scary for a lot of people, and I get that. I get the kind of feedback a lot on my channel when I'm streaming on Twitch. By the way, link down below. Make sure you're following me on Twitch. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? No way, bro. Anyways, from my experience, some of the best ways to start learning how to PvP is to be learning in Battlegrounds, the Battleground system, ladies and gentlemen. Now, why is that? Mainly because of three things. So, thing number one, it's a no CP environment. So that puts players who have both high CP or low CP on a similar playing field where builds, teamwork, and just flat out individual skill are the biggest factors in a successful game. While it's still viable for players to win fights when they have low CP against players with higher CP, it becomes a lot more realistic for a new player to get secure kills and just have a better feeling of their rotation when that condition is just removed entirely, as opposed to Cyrodiil or Imperial City where CP is enabled. The second reason why I think Battlegrounds is better is because there is an MMR system implemented in Battlegrounds to begin with. Now, what is MMR? MMR stands for Matchmaking Rating. Upon entering Battlegrounds, you'll have a matchmaking rating of 0. While this system is not visible, it is definitely there and implemented. You can definitely feel the difference over time. So what's supposed to happen is you're going to be matched against players with a very similar skill level as you, giving you a better environment to really figure out if your build is good for what you're playing in, how to run your skills, and just fight against players that aren't big sweaty nerds such as myself. If you go fight me as a new player, you're gonna have a bad time, and you're gonna be like, wow, I'm just really bad, which is not really the case. It's just you're new and you just don't know better, and like that's just what happens. Now, granted, there are gonna be times you will be thrown into lobbies that are those big sweaty lobbies, because the system isn't perfect. I'm not gonna lie, it's not a perfect system. If that does happen to you, don't worry about it. Just don't stress it. Understand that it's just not your MMR bracket. If anything, take it as a learning experience. Like, watch those players who are performing really, really well and just see what like kind of sets, what kind of builds, like what they're doing different from you, and try to apply it in your gameplay. If like you can't really see it like visually, don't be afraid to message them and ask them for advice. Like, a lot of the PvP players, like counter to popular belief, are actually extremely helpful, and they're down to like give out information. Like, you just need to ask them. Just ask them nicely and they'll help you out. All right, my third reason why Battlegrounds is a good environment for new players to learn is because it's a 4v4v4 arena. Now, why is that important, Payne? Well, I'm glad you asked again. So, in Battlegrounds, the maximum amount of players that can attack you at once is going to be 8. And that is good because if you go into Cyrodiil or Imperial City, you could get attacked by 20 players at once. And trust me, it's a lot easier to manage fighting 8 players as opposed to 20 or 30 or, even 50. As much as it does suck to still get steamrolled by 8, it's a better learning environment how to avoid that in Battlegrounds as opposed to Cyrodiil, where like in those kind of scenarios where you're just getting like 20v1, like there's just really not much you can do to begin with, and it can be very discouraging. And the chances are in Battlegrounds, like your teammates are gonna do their best to stay with you at all times because they want to win the game too. There's objectives, there's death matches. Like players generally stick together a lot better in Battlegrounds. So the chances of you actually just being alone and getting 8v1 are much smaller than as opposed to just going to Cyrodiil and getting cut off from your group. Definitely give Battlegrounds a try if you're a new player. Like I really do believe it's the best system we have for a new player to really dip their toes in the PvP and start understanding how it works. All right, my next tip for you guys is that you should always be making sure that you're reapplying your buffs in and out of combat. If you're having trouble keeping them all up, I would encourage you to prioritize 2 of them, and those 2 are going to be your source of major resolve, being like an armor buff such as volatile armor on Dragonite, and a source of major brutality and sorcery such as degeneration from the mage's skill line. Or again, if we want to bring up I mainly play Dragonite, so like molten armaments is one way to do it. I believe sorcerer has crit surge is another option. Generally each class has an option for major resolve and major brutality or sorcery on their class kits. Those are your 2 most important buffs. Now, why are they the most important? I'm glad you asked. All right, so Major Resolve is roughly about 30% damage mitigation when it's on you. So it automatically just takes off a lot of the damage you'll be taking like right off the bat. And if you're using a do-over time heal, such as Resolving Vigor, which could be found in your Alliance skill line. I think you unlock it at level 5 Alliance once you get there. That's a great one. That's a great do-over time heal that you can put on yourself. But it also grants you minor resolve on top of that. So you'll have major resolve and minor resolve on your build, increasing your maximum resistances by a lot. Probably around like 45% when both of them are combined. Major brutality and sorcery, again, boosts your weapon and spell damage, by 20%. So that again is another source of increasing your damage output and your healing potential. Also, please don't let these fall off while you're just out of combat. Nothing makes a Nightblade or a Gank Blade happier than seeing you with your 20k HP, unbuffed, just prancing around Cyrodiil or IC. Like, they're gonna take you out within a second. Like, they love that kind of thing. Trust me, I've played a Nightblade. I specifically look for those players at the start of mid-year Mayhem or Whitestrake's Mayhem. Don't be that guy. Like, be on top of your buffs, please. All right, guys, I got one more tip for you. And guess what? It's going to be extremely cringe. But I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway because I feel like it's important. Your last tip for you is to just please have fun. Enjoy your time out there in PvP. Join a Zerg. Run over groups with them. Go solo. Seek out that adrenaline-inducing 1vx fight. Just go in with a good mindset. Don't let dying discourage you because really there's just nothing to be lost at the end of the day. Like, it'd be different for all playing on old school RuneScape, man. You got PK'd in the wilderness and lost 30 million worth of gear, like 30 million gold. I don't understand it, but you know, screw it. Run out there, give it your all, and get a nice kill, die proudly. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I just hope you guys found this video to be extremely helpful. I'll have more builds coming out for Necrom, including one for the Arcanist. Sorry, the Arcanist, I know. Really excited for it, but, you know, until then, guys, my name's Pain the Axe. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Stay primal. Goose!